This lesson will cover the first assignment for quiz 3. So solving quadratics by completing the square. You're going to need to print out, again, these try 1 quiz 3 notes and reference material, which is this here, and it just basically goes through the steps of completing the square, which I will show you, and then how to convert from standard form into Vertex form, which is highly related to completing the square. So this is what we're doing is we are solving for the x-intercept. So instead of using our root finder, we're going to now start to show the work. There's going to be the quadratic formula that we will do to also get x-intercepts or roots. So there's technology ways, but there's always by hand the way that these things can be done. There's the by hand way to get the vertex point, so on and so forth. So we want to now focus a little bit on the algebra. So the first step in completing the square to solve these is to make sure the value of a is 1. So a is the coefficient on x squared, b is the coefficient on x, c is the constant added on the end. So we want to make sure that that is 1. If it's not, like you see on number 2, we have to divide by 3 everywhere to get it equal to 1. After that, we want to actually add the value of c to the other side. So that 51 is, we're going to add 51 to both sides. And then we're going to take the value of b, and I'm going to go up here and do this. We're going to divide by 2, and then we're going to take that number and square it. So on that second step, what we do when we square that b over 2, it's always positive. This b over 2 can be negative, but when we square it, it will always be positive. And that's going to get added into both sides every single time. And sometimes as we do these, there are fractions and decimals and numbers that aren't very nice. Now, step 3, this number here is going to go in a set of parentheses, and then we're going to add the right-hand side. Now, how did I know that? Well, we completed the square. In other words, this is going to factor as the same thing twice. So instead, and that same thing twice is that. So instead of going to your root finder and entering 11449 in and getting -7 twice, it's just this number that's in a set of parentheses with x plus that number or minus that number, depending on what you get, squared every time. And then you crunch out the right side. And then what you do from here is you take the square root, positive and negative, and this is going to solve your problem. So subtract 7, -17, subtract 7, 3. So -17 and 3 are the two solutions. That's what you would get with a root finder. I need to say this. If when you do this you get 0, you're only going to get one solution. If when you do this you get a negative, you're going to get no solution. So that's what this line is about here, line 6 in the notes, and that's something to maybe highlight and pay attention to. That was an easy one. Let's take a look at number 2. So step 1 is to divide everything by 3. And maybe you could kind of do both of these in one. Then we need to get the 4/3 to the other side. Maybe you could do both of those steps in one. So we want to take 8/3 and divide by 2. That's 8 over 6, which is 4 over 3. There's some quick math for you. And then we want to square that. So sometimes you have fraction work to do, and you're just going to have to use your calculator if you can't do it. I would try to keep them in fraction form. So 16/9 is what is going to get added into both sides. So I know 100% on the left I have x plus 4/3 squared. But what is -4/3 plus 16/9? Well, it's -12/9 plus 16/9, which is 4/9. Again, there's a little bit of mental math for you. you can't do it, you're going to have to use a calculator, figure it out. Now you take the square root of both sides. So when you square root both sides, I didn't say this the last time, it lifts the square off, and then you get the positive and negative value of the right side. So square root of 4/9 is 2 over 3. You square root the top and the bottom. And then you simply subtract 4/3. So on the first one, you get negative 6/3, which is negative 2. And on this one, you get negative 2/3. 2/3 minus 4/3. All right, so I'm always checking my work, so we need to back up. There, I forgot a negative here, so this is negative, making this negative. So we really have to watch out. So it's x minus 4/3. That exact value of b, which is negative 8/3, has to get divided by 2. So sometimes that top is negative. Okay, there's my advertisement again. I'm never going to figure out how to get rid of that. And then that gets squared. So it's x minus 4/3 on both. So it makes a negative 2. And then this will be 6/3. So this will make a positive 2 here. These signs will switch. And then here, this will make positive 2/3. Okay, so definitely double check your work. I had to pause and double check mine. These fraction ones are a little trickier. It's definitely easy to make a mistake. Again, you can use the polysymbol 2 to double check your work. All right, a couple more. I'll do 3 and 6 on this, and then I'll go to the second part. So you want to divide everything through by 5, and then take the 60 over 5 to the left here. So 4x minus 12. And so we would add the 12. Leave yourself a little bit of room on the left side when you do add that number to the right. So we want to divide by 2. Make sure, again, you don't mess up the sign. Again, this is always positive here. Sometimes that can be negative, so be careful that you don't make that mistake like I did on problem 2. So this left side is x plus 2 squared. I'm getting ahead of myself here. We want to add 4 and add 4. So the squared number is what you add to both sides, and it's the right-hand side that you have to simplify. And then this factoring will work perfectly. You just take that number, put it in there. Instead of doing the factoring, you can just jump to that conclusion, I guess. So that's the idea of completing the square. So now you want to square root both sides. Equals negative 4, and then x plus 2 equals 4. So subtract 2, and that is negative 6. I'm going to get this one all right. And subtract 2. Bam, did it right. So it is very recipe oriented, and you just have to be careful that you follow things to the T. Okay, divide through by 8 everywhere. Step 1, x squared plus 2x. And then 42 over 8 is 21 over 4. Awkward number, but that happens. And then add it to both sides. Okay, so we want to take b, which is 2, divide by 2. And then square 1. So this side here is definitely going to be x plus 1 squared. And then go back and add 1. So this will become 21 over 4 plus 4 over 4, 25 over 4. So now square root both sides. And it equals the positive and the negative. And now you subtract 1. So Negative 5 halves minus 2 over 2. Negative 7 over 2. And then 5 halves minus 2 over 2 is 3 halves. So you make 1 2 over 2. So there's some more difficult ones in completing the square. So you have the others to do through 12. Now I'm going to jump up to, actually through 18. Might make this a couple of days. To taking things from the standard form to the vertex form. And the steps are very much the same as the steps that we had with completing the square. So we're going to go through and make sure A is 1. And it is on problem 1. And then we're going to subtract over to the left this time. Leave a little bit of room there. The 71, or the value of C. Now we're going to take B over 2. Be careful that you don't mess that up. So that's 8, and we're going to square that. That makes that 64. So that's what gets added into both sides. So this becomes minus 7. Let me get my answer key here. So simplify the left, and then this becomes x plus 8 squared. And then you add 7 to both sides and solve for y. And now what we have is the vertex form of the quadratic. So if I said, tell me the vertex of this, you would say negative 8, positive 7. So it goes back to that original set of notes, which you should have printed out. Standard form and vertex form. It involves the same kind of steps. So I want to get to some harder ones where you have something other than A, B, and 1. Let's take a look at problem 7. So in problem 7, we got to divide both sides by 2 to start with. And so that's going to and 170 over 2, I think, is 85. Just let me make sure it is. And then we're going to subtract over 85. Kind of leave a little space there to add on the completing of the square. Okay, so from here, we're going to take 18 over 2. That's 9. And so then we're going to square 9 as 81. So 81 is what gets added in to both sides here. Okay, so on the left, we have y over 2 minus, 4, negative 85 plus 81 minus 4, equals x plus 9 squared. So that number, again, is exactly in the parentheses. Okay, so we have 2 things to do now. Add the 4 and multiply everything by 2. And now that's going to be tricky. Okay, so both of these things get the 2. So the 2 goes in front of the x plus 9 squared. You multiply the x plus 9 squared by 2. And you also multiply the 4 by 2. So on your tier 3 problems on the quiz, you're going to get harder versions of this. All right, let's do problem 11, because that just looks pretty scary. So divide by negative 9 is our first thing that we do. And let's see, 62 over 9 is 18, so that's plus 18x. And 731 over 9 is 731 over 9. Okay, so Okay, so then we subtract over 731 over 9. Again, leave a little room there. Now 18 over 2 is 9, and then 9 squared is 81. So 81 is what gets added in. Now this is awful awkward here. I'm using purple, I don't know why. So the right side is x plus 9 squared. And then the left side, negative 731 over 9, you're definitely going to have to use some of your calculator. So negative 2/9. That's what all of that simplifies into. And now you add 2/9. And this is definitely stuff that you want to check out. Did I do this right? Check the answers, because this is, I mess this up a lot. There's my advertisement again. Multiply everything by negative 9. So we have negative 9 in front. And then that makes this negative 2. Hey, I got it right. So happy. So negative 9 times 2/9 is negative 2. Okay, so do as many of these as you feel you need to get this down. Actually, all of these are strongly recommended.